I remember that evening as if it were yesterday. I was sitting watching the local evening news on an old TV, and my wife Penny was sitting across the room looking at me with a very curious expression on her face. The problem was that she just couldn't bring herself to tell me what was on her mind. Why? Well, for two reasons, actually. First, because I didn't believe she believed it herself, and second, because if she brought it up, she knew she would be opening a Pandora's box that would be better left closed. I have to go back a year, to the night it all started. We bought this big old farmhouse in the country about 5 or 6 years ago. There were several beautiful old stone barns on the property that could be converted. We lived in the old farmhouse while we converted the large barn into our dream home. Well, the builders did. Penny and I were just there to make sure everything was done the way we wanted it. After we moved into the barn, we asked the builders to fix up the farmhouse and convert the smaller barn into a guest cottage at the same time. The idea was to sell the farmhouse and rent out the cottage during the summer, but things didn't work out as planned. The U.S. Air Force is stationed at a nearby base, and the farmhouse ended up being rented by a U.S. Air Force officer and his family for about a year. He didn't want to buy the house because he didn't plan to stay in England for long. We could have used the money from the sale. But the American offered us a very good rent, and we agreed. One of his colleagues also rented the cottage for a good price. So Penny and I were happy. After a year and a half, both of our tenants' terms of service in England came to an end, and they left for home in the U.S. with their lovely families, with whom Penny and I had gotten along very well. For some reason, we didn't put the house up for sale. We were so happy with the rental income that we believed we would be able to rent it out again. One evening, I came home from work and was greeted at the door by Penny with a huge smile on her face. "I rented the house," she smiled at me. "All the contracts are signed. Everything is ready." Penny caught me off guard. "What do you mean, you rented the house?" I asked. I probably sounded pretty shocked and maybe a little annoyed. "To whom? Without me meeting them first?" "Did you at least ask for references?" The smile on Penny's face faded a little. "Oh, we don't need references for these people, Pete. You'll never believe who they are." "Well, who they are doesn't matter to me as much as whether they can pay the damn rent on time." "How about a year's rent in advance cash? Well, actually a check. Would that work for you?" "That sounds too good to be true. Who are they, millionaires or something?" "Number. Although, I don't know. Maybe they are millionaires, but either way, the TV company is paying for them." "I don't understand you, girl. Who did you rent this damn house to?" "Brooke Marsh, the news anchor, and her husband. You know the actor, Stephen Walters." "God, Stephen Walters. I thought he was killed a couple of years ago. Didn't I hear on the news that he was in a terrible accident?" "No, he wasn't killed, but he was in a very serious accident. He says he's almost completely recovered and is still as charming as ever." From the silly look on Penny's face, I could tell she liked the idea of a movie star living in a farmhouse. Why do people love celebrities so much? They're just people like the rest of us. Although even I have to admit that Stephen Walters is handsome. They were looking for a quiet, cozy place nearby where Stefan could recover, since Brooke would be hosting a daytime talk show on television. They believed this was exactly what they were looking for. Quiet, secluded, away from the crowds and far enough from the road that Stefan's fans or the paparazzi, if they waited at the gate hoping to catch a glimpse of him, wouldn't cause too much trouble. I had to admit that Brooke was one of the sexiest news anchors on television. I enjoyed watching her read the news, but she hadn't appeared on the BBC since she married Stephen. Damn, if Brooke is on daytime TV, that means I won't be able to see her as often. Brooke really is something. Hey, what did you expect? I'm a man, aren't I? Why would you want to watch her on TV when she'll be living next door? You'll probably see her all the time. Oh, yeah. I can just picture Brooke Marsh and Stefan Walters socializing with a couple of old nags like us. I'm sure we'll see each other often. They seemed very nice. I told Steph that you wouldn't mind if he used your gym. You did what? When we converted the barn, I set aside one room overlooking the pool. I told you it was our dream house, for a gym, and equipped it with everything we needed. No, I'm not a fitness fanatic. I don't work out that much, but I like to play around with the equipment. You know, it's my macho side. I'm one of those people who doesn't gain weight as they get older. 18 years after my wedding, I could still fit into the suit I wore to the altar. I'm afraid I can't say the same for Penny, although she still looks damn good to me. I set up the gym especially for her, even though she hadn't shown much enthusiasm for using it before. You don't mind Stefan using the gym, do you? You hardly ever go there. I don't know, I thought to myself, if Penny's going to be going to that damn gym. Maybe she'll spend time there herself. No, of course not. I don't mind. Just don't let him hog the place. I think he'll only go during the day when Brooke is on TV and you're at work, although he'll probably want to go on the weekends too. Those of you who are more perceptive may be wondering why I wasn't concerned that Stefan Walters, this so-called Adonis that Penny was so in love with, would be in my house with my wife, who basically believed the sun shone out of his ass while I was at the office. The thing is, I'm 52, and Penny is 51. Stefan Walters is almost half our age. Penny could be his mother, and from what I've heard before he married Brooke, he had hundreds of young women chasing after him. What interest could he possibly have in a slightly overweight mother of two? And remember, Penny was still trying to convince me that it was a good idea for Stefan to go to the gym. If Brooke comes with him on the weekends, you'll get to see her in her workout clothes and her swimsuit. Hey, maybe she wears a bikini. I bet you'd like that, you old pervert. I told them they could use the pool whenever they wanted. It seemed to me that Penny had presented me with a fait accompli, and she was making plans to enjoy having two famous people living in our neighborhood. I couldn't do anything but agree with her plans. Brooke and Stefan, God, where do they get these stupid stage names? I bet his birth certificate said John Smith or Fred Bloggs, moved in a few days later. To my surprise, they turned out to be very nice people. For some reason, I had decided they would be conceited or something, but they were perfectly normal, at least until Stefan's fans found out where he lived. Then everything really went to hell. No pun intended. I was surprised by the behavior of some of his fans. They would just drive up to the driveway and stand at the front door of the farmhouse, or in the yard, or in the trees, or in the bushes around the house, or even in my damn garage when it was raining. Basically, wherever they wanted. Even worse were the damn photographers from the newspapers. Paparazzi, as they're called. God, those assholes hid everywhere you could possibly imagine and even where they couldn't. We had to call the police several times to get them removed. The problem was solved by installing a 6-foot fence and automatic gates, as well as a privacy fence around the pool. It was quite an expensive undertaking with all the surveillance cameras and other equipment. But, as they say, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth, especially since the TV company covered most of the costs. I'm not entirely sure that Stefan was happy with the new security measures. I noticed that he enjoyed having young female fans crowd around him. You could often see him going out into the street, signing autographs and hugging them. By hugging, I mean groping, because I noticed that he was quite handsy with some of these young women when he thought no one was looking. I was surprised that Brooke put up with it, but she was either used to it or knew what to expect when she married him. With the new security systems came a surprise I hadn't expected. All kinds of so-called celebrities started showing up on the weekends. You know the kind of people I'm talking about. People who are famous only because they are famous and have a good PR agent. Some of them were frankly complete idiots. But some were quite nice. I was very happy to rent them the cottage, at an exorbitant price, again. Hey, I told you, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. True, when the weather permitted, they had a tendency to hog the pool, and the most insensitive, that's the nicest way I can put it, would just walk into my gym and locker room without asking permission. I guess there are downsides to everything. On the other hand, the kids soon began filling their autograph books and, for some reason, became very popular with their classmates. Weekend sleepovers became fashionable, and all sorts of local organizations suddenly asked Penny and me to join their committees. I think they believed we would be their back door to our famous residence. You know, we could have asked Brooke or Stefan to show up at the opening of the festival or something like that. Penny and I politely declined. I had my work with the Scouts, and Penny was helping the local brownies. Anyway, we spent most of our time with the kids on the small estate. If you can call 14 acres of woods and pasture a country estate. The four of us got along very well and spent almost every evening of that week together. Brooke and Stefan, as I said, threw a lot of parties where the alcohol flowed freely, and we became friends with the rich and famous. Hanging out with Brooke was one of my favorite things to do at the time. She is a beautiful young woman, at least compared to Penny and me. I am a man, and I appreciate it when a woman looks good, and I will repeat, looks good, when she has a beautiful figure with all the right curves. In a swimsuit or bikini, Brooke is most men's dream. But I should add that I love my beautiful wife and would never do anything to upset her. Besides, I don't have a chance. As I said, I'm almost twice Brooke's age. Brooke and Stefan had been living in the farmhouse for just over a month when I first noticed some unexpected changes in Penny. Some of them make me very happy, but others make me wonder. The first thing I noticed was that Penny had become a little more loving. After the children were born, Penny became less sexually active. For many years, she had never been one to initiate sex, except for a few occasions when she got carried away at a party or something and ended up a little drunk. Don't get me wrong, I'm damn sure Penny always enjoyed making love. Once she got started, there was no stopping her. But for several years, she hadn't been in the habit of initiating. Suddenly, her nightwear started to change. It became sexier and more revealing until it was practically non-existent. And at the slightest hint of sex, Penny would immediately shift into high gear, if you know what I mean. Then I started noticing that she was losing weight quickly. It was obvious that she was going to the gym much more often than before. Soon I found out that she was going to the gym every day with Stefan to work out. And that's when we had a problem, because I found myself getting jealous. Yes, I was very happy that Penny was working on her figure, but the better she looked, the more I began to believe in how beautiful she was. And since Stefan's fans kept their distance, I just wondered if Stefan would start to notice the beauty in Penny that I had always seen in her. Stefan struck me as the kind of guy who would grab at any straw, and who was obviously used to being surrounded by beautiful women. I kept my mouth shut for about a month, but then I asked Penny how things were going with Stefan. She blushed, which I didn't like, but then assured me that he was a perfect gentleman. When she said that, alarm bells went off in my head. If there was one thing I was sure of, it was that Stefan Walters was not a gentleman. Gentlemen don't grope young women. You're not in love with Stefan, are you? I asked, trying hard not to smile. What are you implying? Penny asked. Nothing. I just don't want you getting too close to him. You're my wife. Do you really think we're going to do that in the gym or somewhere else while you're at work? Penny said in a slightly sharp tone. Oh, this conversation was clearly not going as I had planned. Unfortunately, Penny thought I was accusing her of something, not smart. I decided it would be best to calm her down quickly. Don't be silly, Penny. I would never think that. God, you could be Stefan's mother. Now I realize that was a huge mistake, but at that moment, I said whatever came to mind. That statement turned out to be as unfortunate as waving a red flag in front of a bull. But I had already said it, and couldn't take it back. So you think I'm an old hag? I'll tell you what, I can turn more young men's heads than you can women's. At that point in the conversation, I really should have kept my big mouth shut, but I only realized that later looking back. Penny took my meaningless statement as me telling her she was no longer young and turned it against me. Stupidly, like any ordinary man, I should have at least come out of the situation even. For a man my age, I don't think I look that bad. I've kept in shape, and if I wanted to, I'm sure I could easily attract women. Well, I'll tell you what. If I wanted to, I could attract any man I chose. To be honest, I don't remember exactly how the argument continued after that. The whole damn conversation didn't go as I had planned. I had hoped to gently warn Penny that she was being too friendly with Stefan, but instead I ended up practically challenging her to seduce him. That night and the next few nights, our sex life took a downturn, but not for long. Penny soon returned to the sex bomb she had become right after Brooke and Stefan moved in with us. But I was still very worried, so much so that I made a few small changes to the video surveillance system. I adjusted the camera that monitored the pool so that it could also see the gym, and I discreetly moved one of the internal surveillance cameras to our bedroom. I had to connect it to the now unnecessary computer network. When the house was being remodeled, I had cables laid in all the rooms, but over time things changed, and now I was using a wireless system. All the cameras were connected to a huge computer in my study, where any movement detected by any of the cameras was recorded on one of several hard drives. To be honest, I don't believe the recordings were ever viewed after the day they were installed, except when I played around with the system a little. The whole thing was a complete waste of money. But the TV company paid most of the bill. I just took everything I could from them. Anyway, the next evening, I snuck into my office while Penny was visiting Brooke and Stefan to see what exactly had happened that day. I fast-forwarded through the footage from the camera in the yard until I saw Stefan approach my house around noon. He went into the gym and started working out, and Penny soon joined him. For the next hour, they worked out on the machines, and nothing unusual happened. Then Penny apparently went into the kitchen and came out with coffee for both of them, which they took out to the patio to drink. After sitting and chatting for a while, Penny went into the house for a moment. When she returned, she was wearing a swimsuit and immediately jumped into the pool. Shortly after, Stefan went to the changing room, came out in his swimming trunks, and also jumped into the water. They swam and fooled around a bit, but again, nothing unusual happened. After getting out of the pool, they lay down on separate lounge chairs and sunbathed for a while. Then Stefan went back to his workout and Penny took a little nap. Then she went into the house and disappeared. I switched to the camera I had set up in our bedroom and watched Penny go into the bathroom, where I assumed she took a shower. Then she came out and put on cropped jeans, a short t-shirt, and as far as I could see, nothing else. God, she looked good. Then she went downstairs and back out onto the patio. After lying on the deck chair for a while longer, she went into the gym and talked to Stefan for about 20 minutes. Then, to my horror, they both went into the house. Now, stupid me, I used the camera that covered the hallway, the stairs, and the landing in our damn bedroom. I frantically checked the other cameras but couldn't find them. The living room and family rooms were empty, as was the master bedroom. There was no camera in the kitchen, so I couldn't see if they were there. I believed I would have to fix this, but it was already a little late. An hour later, judging by the timestamps on the recordings, they both reappeared in the gym. Stefan worked out a little longer, while Penny pottered around in the garden until the children came home from school. They are picked up and dropped off at the gate by the school bus every day. The problem was that Penny and Stefan had disappeared for an hour. I cursed myself for not installing more cameras in the house. I wandered around the house, checking the 2 guest bedrooms for signs of anyone's presence. I didn't find anything suspicious. That evening, I tried to act as natural as possible, but Penny seemed to sense that I was out of sorts. The next day, I called the company that installed the surveillance system in my office and asked them to send me a couple more cameras by express mail. I didn't get a chance to check the recordings that day because Brooke and Stefan came over for dinner, and then Stefan and I played pool until the early hours of the morning. I didn't want Penny or him to suspect that I believed they were having fun with each other. If they didn't suspect anything, and my suspicions turned out to be false and they were innocent, I would definitely be in deep trouble. and that's not where you want to be when Penny is involved. I know that from previous experience. The cameras arrived at my office on Friday morning, but that evening and throughout the weekend, I simply didn't have a chance to install them. Penny or the kids were around the whole time. It took me about an hour to install each camera when I was alone in the house, but I never got the chance, so I had to come up with a plan B for Monday. I decided to secure the beds in both guest rooms. It was a simple operation that consisted of carefully arranging a blanket covered with a bedspread. The chances of someone not touching the blanket, even if they sat on the bed, were 0. If someone lay down on the bed, they would hardly put the blanket and bedspread back in their original place. On Monday evening, when I returned from work, I was in luck. The blanket and bedspread in one of the guest rooms had been moved, but not in the other. Now I had to consider that Penny might have simply remade the bed. So I didn't jump to conclusions. I just made the bed the next day. I still hadn't had a chance to set up the cameras, but I found time to check the recordings. Every weekday for about 3/4 of an hour, Penny and Stefan were in the house, but I couldn't find them. The next evening, I was sure that the guest bed had been remade again. What should I do now? I didn't install any more cameras. I knew what was going on, but I didn't know what to do. You see, I love Penny and I don't want to lose her. We're a team and we've been together for 26 years. Oh, we haven't been married that long, but we've been together for most of that time. We weren't married for the first 8 years, and at the beginning of our relationship, we had a few silly arguments that led to us breaking up for a couple of months. We even dated other people while we were apart, but we always came back to each other. We had some minor problems back then, as we were both previously married. I think it was probably related to trust, but I believe we were both afraid of making another mistake. Once you've been bitten, you're a little skeptical about tying the knot again. Penny's and my love was not and never has been the kind that makes you lose your head. Look at each other with the eyes of teenagers in love. It's more like the love between close friends and confidants, the kind of love that just is and stays. Penny was playing games with Stefan. I was sure that's what she was doing. Understand? I didn't like the idea, and I wasn't going to put up with it. But I didn't want an explosion that would destroy our marriage if I could avoid it. If I could quietly put an end to it and make sure it didn't happen again, I would be happy. Listen, let me explain how Penny and I got together. I got married for the first time when I was 18, almost 19. I believed that in Michelle I had found the girl of my dreams. She was a year younger than me. I have to admit that I knew she didn't have the best reputation. But love is blind, and I had a father who most people at the time considered rich. Michelle probably took that into account when she took an interest in me. We got married, and for 2.5 years everything was wonderful, until I found a letter from an abortion clinic. Michelle had had an abortion without my knowledge. When the dust settled, it turned out that she wasn't sure I was the father and didn't want to take any chances. There was a high probability that the child could be black. The divorce was an interesting and unpleasant affair. Michelle got alimony, but it didn't last long, as she soon married another stupid jerk. Apparently, he caught her in bed with another guy less than a year later. And as far as I know, he's still serving time for manslaughter. The guy Michelle was sleeping with apparently fell out of the window of their 6th-floor apartment. At least, that's what her husband told the newspapers. For some reason, I don't believe the judge saw it that way. So, not particularly satisfied with the world or my life, I lived the bachelor life until I was almost 26. One evening, I was at a party at an old-school friend's house. One of the guests looked a lot like a Neanderthal I remembered from school. A complete idiot who liked to think he was a tough guy. You know the type. He bullied all the little kids at school, but when it came to a real fight, he was nowhere to be found. Anyway, this jerk had a girlfriend who, I was told, was his wife. You had to hear the way he talked to her to believe it. I guess he was still trying to look cool. But since there were no little kids around, he took it out on his wife. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but it seems like Penny, his wife, wanted to go home or something. In any case, She must have said something wrong. This jerk raised his hand and hit her in the face in front of everyone. Sometimes fate plays its part. I never liked that jerk and his aggressive personality. I was angry at the world in general, and in my opinion, hitting a woman is not only unacceptable, but completely unacceptable in my presence. So, without thinking twice, I knocked him out, just like that. One punch. He fell and couldn't get up. When he came to, with me standing over him and everyone else watching, he apologized to Penny, who hadn't said a word since he hit her. Then he apologized to me and everyone else at the party, and they left. One of my friends remarked that he thought the bastard would beat Penny when they got home. Thinking I'd have a chance to deal with him again, I decided to follow them home, pretending I'd call the police if I heard anything suspicious. 2 other guys went with me. I don't know if it was to help or just to watch the fun. In any case, Penny's husband didn't wait for her to come home. He beat her up in an alley near the party. Well, I knocked him out for the 2nd time that night, and someone called the police. Penny was in bad shape, so she was taken to the hospital. The next day, I went to visit her, and she told me she was afraid of her husband, who, as I suspected, had a habit of using her as a punching bag whenever he felt like it. Don't ask me why women put up with that. But Penny wasn't the first or last woman I'd come across in that situation. In those days, the police just classified it as domestic violence and quietly forgot about it. I'm glad the authorities have since revised that strategy. Penny was afraid to go home, so I put her up in my apartment. Don't get me wrong. I was still playing the night, and Penny had her own room. Long story short, Penny never left. At least not for more than a month or 2. Over the years, our relationship evolved from landlord and guest to almost brother and sister, and then to lovers. 8 years later, while we were expecting our first child, we walked down the aisle. And for 18 years, we were devoted to each other. No, that's not true. It sounds like we never argued. Of course, we had our share of fights over the years. We teased each other and flirted with other people. I'll be honest. I flirted with some ladies at the sports club a few times. A couple of times I got a little too close, but I'm sure Penny doesn't know about that. So if Penny was having a little fun, I couldn't really get too upset about it, to be honest. So I tried to figure out what to do about Stefan. I decided that if Mohammed was already at the top of the mountain, the best thing I could do was get rid of the damn mountain. So the next weekend, I caught Brooke when she was alone. "Brooke, I don't know how to tell you this," I said, "but there's a clause in the lease that says that in the event of a personality conflict, I can give you 30 days to move out, and I intend to exercise that right." Brooke looked at me, clearly stunned. "Why, Tim, what the hell happened? I thought we got along so well considering how close we live." "Let's just say they're too close for my comfort." "Oh, damn. He didn't do that, did he? Did Stefan say something to upset you or Penny?" I thought for a few seconds before letting the cat out of the pigeon coop. "He doesn't upset Penny. No, Brooke, actually, that's not it at all. Let's just say that I think Stefan makes her very happy, and that upsets me. I wish Penny and I were still married when you 2 move in." To my surprise, a smile appeared on Brooke's face. I must have looked angry because the smile disappeared immediately. "I'm sorry, Tim, but I think you've got it all wrong. While I can see that Penny might be having some fun, if you believe that Stefan is sleeping with her, I can assure you that's not the case. But I have to admit that he's very skilled in the art of making a woman happy, but only to a certain extent." "Tim, come inside, please, and let me explain," Brooke said, leading me into the living room. Brooke picked up the video camera, turned it on, and placed it on the bookshelf, pointing it at the 2 of us. Looking at the camera, not at me, she said, "Tim, I want to tell you a secret that must not become public knowledge. I want you to promise me on tape that you won't tell anyone what I'm about to tell you. I'm not sure this recording will hold up in court. But if you tell anyone what I'm about to tell you, I'll have my lawyers dry you up. Promise?" I looked at the camera, a little confused, and then at Brooke. "I promise, Brooke," I said. "Okay, let's begin, and I pray that you are a man of your word. Stefan cannot, under any circumstances, have sexual relations with Penny or anyone else. You see, in that unfortunate accident, Stefan lost his necessary attributes. Don't make me laugh, Brooke. I saw that damn bulge in his swim trunks. If only, Tim. But all that glitters is not gold. What you see is the work of some very talented plastic surgeons. Everything looks fine and looks great, but I'm afraid nothing works. He can't feel anything. At least nothing that matters. Tim, Stefan is completely sterile and suffers from total erectile dysfunction. I don't understand. With erectile dysfunction, you can get implants and stuff. I remember reading about a guy who got a little pump so he could pump it up. Why didn't Stefan get one of those? Tim, Stefan's career as an actor is built on his looks. He's a big Romeo who knocks girls off their feet. What do you think will happen if this comes out? The tabloids will tear him to pieces. His reputation will be ruined. Stefan is a fool, but he's not that stupid. He knows he can't trust himself not to try to get one of his little starlets or one of his cute little groupies into bed. Just imagine what one of those little bitches could do to him if she saw him pumping up his manhood. Can you imagine the headlines in News of the World? No, everyone thinks Stefan is so in love with me that nothing can throw him off balance. Because no matter how hard they try, he never takes the bait. Sorry for the pun. Oh shit, then what the hell is he doing with Penny? Ah, that's the rub. Stefan really loves women, and I'm sure Penny enjoys him. What are you going to do, Tim? Penny is cheating on you in a way, just like Stefan is cheating on me. Listen, if you want us to move out, we'll move out. But I'm begging you, can't we work this out somehow? 4 months later, Penny and I were watching the last news segment of Brooke's TV show for the season. Brooke had just told the whole world how happy she was to be 3 months pregnant. My Penny just didn't know what to think, and I was trying my best not to smile. The last few months have been pretty exhausting for me, so a break will be welcome, but Brooke promises she'll be back for revenge next year. Life goes on.